Making headlines for this week of August 21st. Greece up for grabs. Facing an internal vote of non-confidence, Greek PM resigns, people to decide, while public assets are divided up for sale. The guillotine raises. With 2 months before an election in Canada, pressure of scandals appear to be mounting significantly on Prime Minister Harper. Market carnage. Bad news across markets in Europe and US as the wheels may finally be falling off the fiat currency bandwagon. And from Russia with love, little-known monument from Russia as a 9/11 memorial in New Jersey comes back into the spotlight as goodwill reminder.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. It is still quite confusing to try to figure out what may be happening both publicly and behind the scenes in Greece, but as of August 20th, one thing has become clear. The Greek people will again be going to the polls. Ireland's news website, The Journal, reported on August 20th that Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has confirmed he will be tendering his resignation and the country will hold a snap election next month. He made the announcement on national television on the evening of the 20th, stating that he has exhausted the mandate given to him in January when he took up office. The article added that Tsipras' announcement came on the same day the debt-crippled country received its first €13 billion in bailout cash. That effectively started the mammoth rescue package agreed to last month and worth around €86 billion over the next 3 years. Making his statement, Tsipras conceded that the €86 billion deal reached was not the one they wanted, but the best that they could get. He also said that Greece is now obliged to honor it. The bailouts have been extremely unpopular in Greece and are still unpopular with members of Tsipras' own Syriza party. Reports had been circulating that Tsipras was going to face a vote on non-confidence within his party, with members citing that the leader has failed to stand by the promise made to the people of Greece to not accept bailouts or terms by criminal bankers in the EU offering loans created out of thin air. Of course, this news would very likely be welcomed by those controlling the loans because another election only wastes more money. The Journal article reported that the European Commission, one of the creditor institutions overseeing the new rescue package, welcomed the news, saying it would politically bolster the just-launched bailout, Greece's third bailout in 5 years. Referring to the EU bailout fund, Martin Selmayr, Chief of Staff to Commission head Jean-Claude Juncker, tweeted the following: "Swift elections in Greece can be a way to broaden support for ESM stability, support program just signed by Prime Minister Tsipras on behalf of Greece." Yet, another critical moment appears to be forming, not only in Greece, but in the entire southern portion of Europe. With a new Greek election being called for September 20th, this new vote may become the bellwether for the national elections in Spain, scheduled for September 27th, and also for the elections in Portugal, scheduled for October the 4th. The leader of the Podemos party in Spain has allegedly already broken ranks with Tsipras, feeling a sense of betrayal at having surrendered to the interests of the global cabal. Unless Greece elects another leader committed to canceling the loans, the torch of exposing the global banking cabal may now revert to the people of Spain and Portugal. Under the current constitution of Greece, according to John Henley, writing for the London Guardian, because Tsipras was elected less than a year ago, President Parkopis Pailopoulos cannot immediately call an election when the Prime Minister resigns. Instead, he must first consult the other major parties to see if they could form a government, a near impossibility given the current makeup of the parliament. Greece's main opposition leader, Vangelis Meiamarakis, is to meet Payolopoulos on Friday morning. That would be the 21st, according to an official from Mayor Meraki's New Democratic Party. But the move is seen as largely procedural, with Mayor Meraki's standing little chance of pulling together the numbers to form a governing coalition. Henley adds that Syriza is now likely to split, with a formal announcement thought to be imminent. The leader of the party's dissident left platform, the former energy minister Panagiotis Lafazanis, announced last week that he intended to form a new anti-bailout movement, accusing the government of capitulating to the dictatorship of the Eurozone. There is still the underlying question of why Tsipras caved in to the EU lenders. Was it he who was planted within the party to discredit the movement to the left, or was he threatened or bribed in some way? Former Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis was mentioned in an article by Philip Inman, writing for the London Guardian on August 17th. Inman writes the following: Greece's former finance minister Varoufakis has accused European leaders of allowing oligarchs to maintain their stranglehold on Greek society while punishing ordinary people in a line-by-line critique of the country's $86 billion bailout deal. Varoufakis said the Greek parliament had pushed through an agreement with international creditors that would allow oligarchs, who dominate sections of the economy, to generate huge profits and continue to avoid paying taxes. The outspoken economist published an annotated version of the deal memorandum on his website on Monday, arguing throughout the 62-page document that most of the measures imposed on Greece would make the country's dire economic situation worse. Inman also writes that, as finance minister, Varoufakis opposed any deal with Brussels that he believed would consolidate the strategy of the previous 5 years of bailouts. He argued that combining financial aid with severe cuts to state spending was the main reason why Greek unemployment had soared to more than a quarter of the working population and shrunk the economy by 25%. Varoufakis was succeeded at the finance ministry by his colleague Euclid Tsakalotos, who went on to negotiate the current agreement. Last week, after the memorandum passed into Greek law, Tsakalotos said the deal would take Greece forward and create a more stable financial system. Now, if you are the journalist, what question might you ask right now? The question that immediately comes to my mind is, a more stable financial system for who? The EU controllers or the people of Greece? I think most can already answer that question. This is why it is becoming important to more critically analyze the exact wording of what is said by politicians when speaking to the public. When a term such as more stable financial system is used, many will assume that this is for the people, but evidence up to now suggests that this will not be the case at all. In fact, Greece may have just been led to the slaughter, only to stand in line behind the people of Ukraine, who arrived before them. As if the news could not get any worse for the Greek people, with fictional loans being given to Greece that will most likely be used to pay off other bankers, reports are now circulating that the first of the Greek assets are now appearing on the real estate sales lists. Among them are airports in Greece. Other transportation hubs and also water utilities are to be privatized. Losing public control over water is definitely going to be a long-term pain that is not worth it for a fictional loan bailout. With more, here is the RT report.
The German parliament has overwhelmingly approved a third bailout for Greece. That's after hours of heated debates on a new package of financial help for the debt-ridden country. Now it comes as Syriza, the Greek ruling party, approved a deal to hand over 14 airports to a German consortium. That contract is worth €1.2 billion and could last for up to 50 years. The deal was part of the creditors' demands to secure that third bailout, which they now have. And the airports are not the only things that are on sale in Greece right now. Other travel hubs like ports, railways are also to be sold off. The National Lottery and water utilities are to go too. And what is seen as the most painful, the country's islands. Syriza Party member Stelios Kouloglou believes the EU is all about power and money now.
As long as Greece is losing the assets, it's becoming more weak, less capable of renegotiate a fair agreement. Europe is losing its credibility, its democratic ideology, and it's becoming more and more a game of power and finance and money. Now they want everything for sale. From the very beginning of the crisis, the part of the German establishment, some German media were talking about the islands. Give an island so to repay your debt. And I think in the future probably we will have more demands about selling islands in order to repay the debt. Unfortunately, this is how it goes.
So Germany will be getting control of physical assets with real value in exchange for helping dish out a few numbers on a computer screen that will very likely never benefit the people of Greece. The people of Spain and Portugal would be very wise to pay attention to what has now happened to Greece and pick up the torch and carry it to the palace of the EU bankers and continue to stand where the leadership of Greece fell. In other geopolitical news, with at least 3 elections in September and early October in the southern regions of Europe, the Mediterranean populations will have their opportunity to push change. In Canada, the upcoming election on October 19th marks an opportunity for the people of Canada to show the world that they are paying attention to what their current leadership has done to the country and the people, and that people are ready to make a united stand to rebuild the country and restore it to its once former status as a country admired around the world. The corruption scandals facing the current government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper is beginning to gain the attention of some of the international media. The London Guardian picked up a story by Reuters news agency on August 19th, reporting that Canada's main opposition party has called for federal police to probe whether members of the Prime Minister's office were involved in a bribery and expenses affair that has engulfed the ruling Conservative Party. The scandal, which first erupted in 2013, is threatening to dominate the campaign ahead of the 19th October election, where Harper's Conservatives are bidding to pull off a rare 4th consecutive victory. Harper has extremely close ties to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and appears to be himself focused on carrying out a Zionist agenda for Canada. Both leaders are facing an international backlash on numerous issues at this time, much like Hillary Clinton in the U.S. is facing her own challenges in her presidential bid for her alleged destruction of emails relating to the Benghazi affair in Libya. Reuters, interestingly enough, noted the following at the bottom of its article on Harper. The National Post newspaper, which usually supports the Conservatives, said in an editorial on Tuesday that Wright's actions, and they're referring to former Chief of Staff Nigel Wright, who worked with Harper, Wright's actions showed the extent of the institutional rot that had spread through the government. There are signs beginning to show that elements of the mainstream media are beginning to see through Harper's agenda and are beginning to expose more and more about him. Although I personally really want to believe that the media may be changing in Canada, I do have to remain aware of the fact that there may still be elements of control within the media, and something else may be going on to replace an increasingly popular and potentially dangerous rogue leader like Harper with another controlled puppet. What remains to be seen is whether Anonymous will release more of its treasure trove of information they claim to have on Harper. What many around the world may not know is this. A CBC article dated February 1st of 2006, reporting on the newly re-elected leader Harper with his allegedly illegal majority, wrote the following in that article. Incoming Prime Minister Stephen Harper says his government's first act upon assuming power will be to table a federal accountability bill and promises that it will be in line with recommendations of the Gomery report. Speaking in Ottawa at that time, just hours after the Chief Justice John Gomery released his second and last report into the federal sponsorship scandal, again this is back in 2006, Harper praised the work. He also promised that his government would do its best to implement the recommendations. The article writes that Harper said the Conservatives' proposed Federal Accountability Act, which they first unveiled in early November, which would be back in 2005, already includes similar changes as those proposed by Gomery. The Act's three main planks include eliminating all remaining corporate and union donations to federal political parties and restricting individual donations to $1,000 per person. Also, banning all ministers and their political aides from becoming government lobbyists for at least 5 years from the date they leave their political positions. And 3, giving the Auditor General the power to follow the money to the end recipients, as she or he undertakes a review of the $30 billion handed out each year in the form of federal grants, contributions, and contracts. The outgoing Prime Minister in 2006, Paul Martin, was complimentary to the report issued by Gomery also regarding the scandal, saying his insights and recommendations will be of benefit to all Canadians in the ongoing debate as to how best to ensure government activities are conducted openly, transparently, and effectively. Flash forward now back to 2015, and we find that very little, if any, of this Federal Accountability Act has been followed or adhered to. This is only one of an extremely long list of crimes and dishonorable actions being attributed to one who is being seen increasingly as a dictator. Another potential scandal facing the Canadian government is its support of Israel in condemning the Iran nuclear deal recently negotiated by U.S. President Obama. While other countries are beginning to open their doors once again to Iran and lift their sanctions, several Israeli media have reported that Canada will not lift sanctions and will continue to stand with Israeli PM Netanyahu in condemning the deal. It was about 1.5 to 2 years ago when Harper and the Canadian government kicked out the Iranian diplomatic mission to Canada, and since that time they have not been welcomed back to the country. This is yet another move that is serving to increasingly isolate the two leaders on the global stage. So for now, there are 8 weeks left of campaigning in Canada, and many things are happening on different fronts, with most of these things seeking to achieve the common goal of removing a leader who, in the minds of many nationally and abroad, has truly created an unrecognizable country. Over to financial news, and the signals of massive shifts in the global economy continue to flow, not just in trickles, but almost in a flood. There have been numerous sources reporting on the coming end of the current 7-year business cycle. It was in September of 2001 that we had the events of 9/11 and the stock market crash that followed about a week later. In 2008, there was the Lehman crash. As we come to the end of yet another cycle, the signs appear to be lining up, not only astrologically, but also financially, for something significant to happen during the month of September. First things first, however, and we look to signs unfolding this week. The European market data has now been released, and with one source describing the financial scene this week as carnage. An article to the Zero Hedge website submitted by Tyler Durden has reported the following on August 21st. Carnage everywhere. A surging euro as Chinese yuan carry traders unwind en masse has led to an unwind across most risky assets in Europe. This week saw Euro Stoxx 600, the broad index, crash almost 6%, its biggest drop since September of 2011. Perhaps most stunningly, Germany's DAX was the biggest loser, collapsing 7.4% on the week. European bonds are also seeing risk increase dramatically, with Portugal and Italy the worst, aside from Greece's blowout. Europe's VIX topped 30 this week as US VIX surges. Worst week for European stocks in 4 years. In a separate article on the website, also posted by Durden on the 21st, this second article notes that the Standard & Poor 500 index has broken below the crucial psychological 2,000 level for the first time since late January. This is the biggest collapse in stocks since June of 2013, bigger than October's plunge, which was only rescued by Bullard's threat of quantitative easing 4. What is perhaps most worrisome for the trend followers, the S&P is now down year over year for the first time since May of 2012. In the U.S., CNBC, covering the U.S. markets, also appears to be calling a spade a spade. In its article on the 21st of August, they carried a Reuters news article reporting that following a steep market decline on Thursday, all 3 major indexes spluttered through the trading session on Friday, leading to one of the worst weeks since 2011. A third article on Zero Hedge on August 21st has indicated the Bank of America as having pushed a panic button. The author writes that to think it only took an unprecedented surge in volatility as the market suddenly realized that central banks are losing control in a world where secular stagnation is a direct function of 7 years of failed central bank policy to get the banks out of perma-bullish hibernation and to slam the sell everything alert. It might seem that this author understands the 7-year business cycle. The article added that the Dow theory flashed a sell signal yesterday on the 20th. The message from Dow theory is that the primary trend for U.S. equities has turned down. Those who understand the changes happening around the world at this time are probably those who are more eager than fearful to see the markets going down. Indeed, many, myself included, have long predicted and waited for the day when significant changes would be happening to transform the geoeconomic paradigm of our world. This may now finally be beginning. An article on August 17th on the Hang the Bankers website perhaps offers some hints as to what changes are taking place that may be more positive. Of course, the word positive is relative, depending upon whether or not one hangs on every word of the mainstream media as being truth or fiction. For those who feel that Russia and China are the enemies at this time, they may not like the following news. This article writes that while key Western banks are artificially restraining gold prices to breathe life into the diluted and devalued dollar system, Russia, China, and other emerging economies are involved in the genial move to establish an entirely different gold market. William Engdahl underscores. Key central banks, particularly the Federal Reserve and Bank of England and Western market players, have long been accused of clandestine gold price manipulating aimed at preserving the dollar's role as world reserve currency primus. American-German economic researcher and historian Engdahl writes. Furthermore, Western banks are issuing numerous paper gold futures and other speculative contracts which are in fact disconnected from real physical gold. In a word, operations with the precious metal in London and New York are in questionable hands, the economic researcher noted. The West's ultimate goal is to preserve the dollar's monopoly in the market, thus breathing life into the U.S.-led global financial system. But no one likes monopolists. The article suggests that both Russia and China are employing an entirely different tactic in dealing with Western hegemony. As opposed to protesting and attempting to deal with Western crimes through the corrupted Western legal systems, China and Russia, along with other countries, are moving ahead on their own and just creating a new gold market, one that can't be controlled by Western banking interests. The article continues, this new approach is connected closely with the China-led New Silk Road project and the Shanghai-based Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. In May of 2015, Beijing announced it had established a state-run gold investment fund aimed to bolster China's role in a global gold trade. An economic researcher in the article was quoted as saying that as China has expressed it, the aim is to enable the Eurasian countries along the Silk Road to increase the gold backing of their currencies. That sounds very much like some clear thinking, and far-sighted governments are thinking of creating a stable group of gold-backed currencies that would facilitate orderly trade free from Washington currency wars. Russia is actively supporting China, and Engdahl notes that the new economic Silk Road, integrated with Russia's new Eurasian Economic Union, are more than just energy and railroad infrastructure. They are the central nervous system of the future largest and fastest growing economic space on Earth. So hang on, as the ride appears to be starting to get really interesting at this time, and if all goes well, the Western hegemony will be broken, and the Western controllers will be removed from their power as peacefully, as quickly, and as lawfully as possible. Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, who has perhaps up to now been focusing more on domestic issues, recently ventured out onto the global geoeconomic sphere, sharing some insights on a recent episode of Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Sanders, in particular, expressed his solidarity with the people of Greece. The following comes from Goodman and Democracy Now!
As we turn to Democratic presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders, who recently convened a panel of economists in Washington to discuss the debt crisis in Greece as well as, throughout the world. Senator Sanders said austerity has worsened the situation in Greece. This is some of what he had to say.
We are here today to talk about is the very, very important issue regarding the ongoing debt crisis in Greece and the way that people in governments all over the world are struggling with too much debt. We're going to be focusing on Greece, but in truth, this issue goes beyond Greece. And countries that are struggling not only with too much debt, too much inequality, and too little growth and income. Today, as I think all of you know, there is a very, very serious economic situation unfolding in Greece. In many ways, Greece today resembles the United States in the 1930s in the midst of the worst depression, economic downturn in the history of our country. The Greek economy has basically collapsed, and the people of Greece are trapped in a very, very deep depression. I want to begin by expressing my solidarity with the people of Greece, where 5 years of cruel and counterproductive austerity policies demanded by the European Central Bank, the European Commission, and the International Monetary Fund have left the people of Greece facing a full-blown humanitarian crisis. In my view, there is no more obvious example of the failure of austerity policies than what is going on in Greece. For more than 5 years, Greece has cut pensions. Greece has slashed its government workforce. Greece has made deep spending cuts that have eviscerated its social safety net. In other words, despite what we have been led to believe by many in the media, Greece has not gone on a shopping spree. It has not overfunded its government. Rather, it has imposed massive spending cuts that have caused devastating pain to some of its most vulnerable people. It has done this because its creditors, led by Germany, have insisted that austerity is the only way to dig Greece out of its debt. As a result, today, Greece has the highest levels of inequality and the worst unemployment rates in Europe. The official unemployment rate is 26%. 26%. Youth unemployment in Greece today is more than 50%. More than 30% of the people in Greece are living in poverty, and the Greek economy is 25% smaller, has shrunk by 25% over the last 5 years. That is really quite incredible.
With markets going down, fiat debts and banking crimes being exposed, and with an educated and informed public standing up and speaking out, it should be becoming increasingly clear that there is a massive shift taking place on numerous levels across our planet, and the people do have some say in how the changes unfold if they have the courage, the heart, and the true desire to create something better for all, regardless of where they may call home. The full interview with Sanders will appear in a link in the show summary for this story. Moving next to general news, and we start with a look at what is happening with our mainstream media. A YouTube video shows a TED Talk presentation offered by Cheryl Atkinson, an investigative journalist with CBS News in the U.S. Atkinson was speaking on the topic of how the mainstream media has been able to brainwash the masses. Here's what you need to know about journalism, media control, and society brainwashing.
So, consider this fictitious example that's inspired by real life. Say you're watching the news and you see a story about a new study on the cholesterol-lowering drug called Cholextra. The study says Cholextra is so effective that doctors should consider prescribing it to adults and even children who don't yet have high cholesterol. Is it too good to be true? You're smart, you decide to do some of your own research. You do a Google search, you consult social media, Facebook and Twitter, you look at Wikipedia, WebMD, a nonprofit website, and you read the original study in a peer-reviewed published medical journal. It all confirms how effective Cholextra is. You do run across a few negative comments and a potential link to cancer, but you dismiss that because medical experts call the cancer link a myth and say that those who think there is a link there are quacks and cranks and nuts. Finally, you learn that your own doctor recently attended a medical seminar. The lecture that he attended confirmed how effective Cholextra is, so he sends you off with some free samples and a prescription. You've really done your homework. But what if all isn't as it seems? What if the reality you found was false? A carefully constructed narrative by unseen special interests designed to manipulate your opinion. A Truman Show-esque alternate reality all around you. Complacency in the news media combined with incredibly powerful propaganda and publicity forces mean we sometimes get little of the truth. Special interests have unlimited time and money to figure out new ways to spin us while cloaking their role. Surreptitious astroturf methods are now more important to these interests than traditional lobbying of Congress. There's an entire industry built around it in Washington. What is astroturf? It's a perversion of grassroots, as in fake grassroots. AstroTurf is when political, corporate, or other special interests disguise themselves and publish blogs, start Facebook and Twitter accounts, publish ads, letters to the editor, or simply post comments online to try to fool you into thinking an independent or grassroots movement is speaking. The whole point of AstroTurf is to try to give the impression there's widespread support for or against an agenda when there's not. AstroTurf seeks to manipulate you into changing your opinion by making you feel as if you're an outlier when you're not. AstroTurfers seek to controversialize those who disagree with them. They attack news organizations that publish stories they don't like, whistleblowers who tell the truth, politicians who dare to ask the tough questions, and journalists who have the audacity to report on all of it. Sometimes AstroTurfers simply shove intentionally so much confusing and conflicting information into the mix that you're left to throw up your hands and disregard all of it, including the truth. Drown out a link between a medicine and a harmful side effect, say vaccines and autism, by throwing a bunch of conflicting paid-for studies, surveys, and experts into the mix, confusing the truth beyond recognition. And then there's Wikipedia. AstroTurf's dream come true. Billed as the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit, the reality can't be more different. Anonymous Wikipedia editors control and co-opt pages on behalf of special interests. They forbid and reverse edits that go against their agenda. They skew and delete information in blatant violation of Wikipedia's own established policies. A couple of years ago, CBS News asked me to look into a story about a study coming out from the nonprofit National Sleep Foundation. Supposedly, this press release coming out said, the study concluded we are a nation with an epidemic of sleeplessness and we don't even know it, and we should all go ask our doctors about it. A couple of things struck me about that. First, I recognized the phrase, ask your doctor, as a catchphrase promoted by the pharmaceutical industry. They know that if they can get your foot through the door of the doctor's office to mention a malady, you're very likely to be prescribed the latest drug that's marketed. Second, I wondered how serious an epidemic of sleeplessness could really be if we don't even know that we have it. It didn't take long for me to do a little research and discover that the National Sleep Foundation nonprofit and the study, which was actually a survey, not a study, were sponsored in part by a new drug that was about to be launched onto the market called Lunesta, a sleeping pill. I reported the study as CBS News asked, but of course I disclosed the sponsorship behind the nonprofit and the survey so that viewers could weigh the information accordingly. All the other news media reported the same survey directly off the press release as written without digging past the superficial. It later became an example written up in the Columbia Journalism Review, which quite accurately reported that only we at CBS News had bothered to do a little bit of research and disclose the conflict of interest behind this widely reported survey. So now you may be thinking, what can I do? I thought I'd done my research. What chance do I have separating fact from fiction, especially if seasoned journalists with years of experience can be so easily fooled? Once you start to know what to look for, you'll begin to recognize it everywhere. First, hallmarks of AstroTurf include use of inflammatory language such as crank, quack, nutty, lies, paranoid, pseudo, and conspiracy. AstroTurfers often claim to debunk myths that aren't myths at all. Use of the charged language tests well. People hear something's a myth, maybe they find it on Snopes, and they instantly declare themselves too smart to fall for it. But what if the whole notion of the myth is itself a myth, and you and Snopes fell for that? Beware when interests attack an issue by controversializing or attacking the people, personalities, and organizations surrounding it rather than addressing the facts. That could be AstroTurf. And most of all, AstroTurfers tend to reserve all of their public skepticism for those exposing wrongdoing rather than the wrongdoers. In other words, instead of questioning authority, they question those who question authority. Let's now go back to that fictitious Colextra example and all the research you did. It turns out the Facebook and Twitter accounts you found that were so positive were actually written by paid professionals hired by the drug company to promote the drug. The Wikipedia page had been monitored by an agenda editor also paid by the drug company. The drug company also arranged to optimize Google search engine results, so it was no accident that you stumbled across that positive nonprofit that had all those positive comments. The nonprofit was, of course, secretly founded and funded by the drug company. The drug company also financed that positive study and used its power of editorial control to omit any mention of cancer as a possible side effect. Once more, each and every doctor who publicly touted Colextra or called the cancer link a myth or ridiculed critics as paranoid, cranks, and quacks or served on a government advisory board that approved the drug, each of those doctors is actually a paid consultant for the drug company. As for your own doctor, the medical lecture he attended that had all those positive evaluations was, in fact, like many continuing medical education classes, sponsored by the drug company. And when the news reported on that positive study, it didn't mention any of that. I have tons of personal examples from real life. A couple of years ago, CBS News asked me to look into a story about a study coming out from the nonprofit National Sleep Foundation. Supposedly, this press release coming out said, the study concluded we are a nation with an epidemic of sleeplessness and we don't even know it, and we should all go ask our doctors about it. A couple of things struck me about that. First, I recognized the phrase, ask your doctor, as a catchphrase promoted by the pharmaceutical industry. They know that if they can get your foot through the door of the doctor's office to mention a malady, you're very likely to be prescribed the latest drug that's marketed. Second, I wondered how serious an epidemic of sleeplessness could really be if we don't even know that we have it. I can't resolve these issues, but I hope that I've given you some information that will at least motivate you to take off your glasses and wipe them and become a wiser consumer of information in an increasingly artificial, paid-for reality.
Also related to this story is an article published by Lada Ray on her Future Trendcast blog site on August 19th. Lada Ray highlights in her posting that a hoax is usually a sensationalistic in nature report, often on some sort of blog or alternative media, but lately also in the mainstream media, whose professionalism is so down that they can't and won't check their sources. It usually starts with some kind of sizzling bomb of a story, complete with pictures and certain facts that do not directly confirm the story, which is obvious to those who know the circumstances. Sometimes pics and details are twisted or untrue, but for the uninformed people, the appearances serve as a solid confirmation. She offers a couple of examples and refers to the ongoing situation in Ukraine as one of those examples. This emphasizes once again why it is so important not to trust anything you hear or read, even from this newscast, until you have had a chance to ask your higher self whether certain information feels right to you in the current moment of now. If not, then set it aside. While on the topic of media manipulation and cover-up, as evidence continues to filter more and more into the mainstream public consciousness about the lies and crimes associated with the events of 9/11, information of another kind related to this event has been present for many years also, but has only recently been brought back into the spotlight. What makes this information important and relevant is that it ties in directly with the demonization campaign that has been waged against Russia for alleged crimes in Ukraine, when the vast bulk of the evidence clearly shows that it was the U.S. and that it is the U.S. interests aligned with Israel, the EU, and possibly other countries like Canada that are responsible for what is happening there. This is a heartwarming story of a more positive side of Russia, the side that North Americans, for the most part, are denied to hear and see, especially lately. Yet, for people visiting New Jersey or traveling past the Statue of Liberty, the gesture of Russia and its people is there, in plain sight for all to see, but without any media fanfare or very little public acknowledgement. From Russia with love. John Craven of the London Daily Mail reported on it in November of 2012. In his article, he wrote, "About 50 million people visit New York every year and more than 8 million live there, but no one seems to have heard of the teardrop, which is odd because it is a 100-foot tall, 175-ton memorial to those who died on the city's blackest day." After hearing about the monument by accident and then finally being directed to 34th Street in Bayonne in New Jersey, a taxi driver finally took him through 2 miles of wasteland that used to be an army base until they came to an isolated quay. Craven then writes, "There, high on a mound, stood the monument, a massive, bronze-clad block with a great gash down the middle, into which is suspended a 40-foot, 4-ton shiny nickel teardrop. In the far distance were the skyscrapers of Manhattan. Around the base of the teardrop were the names of all those who died on 9/11, including 26 Russians. In fact, the monument was a gift, an expression of grief from the people of Russia to the U.S. and officially named to the struggle against world terrorism. Vladimir Putin was there when construction began, and Bill Clinton attended the ceremony in the dedication in 2006. Since then, it has been forgotten. Craven did some research and found that its designer, Zurab Tsereteli, one of Russia's leading sculptors, went to Ground Zero after the attack. He was told boats and ferries had shuttled survivors across to New Jersey, where many of the victims had lived. Learning that, he wanted his statue to be on the remote waterfront there with Manhattan as the backdrop. So the expression for the anonymity of this most touching tribute is probably no more sinister than out of sight, out of mind, and that needs remedying. Since 2010, when Craven wrote that, the memorial is still out of sight and more or less out of mind. However, with efforts via social media and people like Nancy Detweiler and Lotta Ray, and no doubt many other beautiful souls, they are taking it upon themselves to remind people of the U.S. and the world that Russia did an unprovoked act of kindness and generosity to a country reeling in grief, a country that is now demonizing Russia. Perhaps Putin could have spoken publicly to remind the world of this gesture. Apparently, he has not. Perhaps, deep inside, he knew a day would come when all the lies would be exposed and the news of this act of kindness would come forth when it needed, to gently awaken people to who the real enemy is and not some manufactured enemy being created by an elitist empire attached to a Zionist agenda. On the memorial's homepage, former President Clinton is quoted as saying on September 11, 2006, "I would like to thank the people of Russia for this gift of solidarity in the war on terror. I thank my friend Zurab Tsereteli for his ability to catch the feelings that cannot be expressed by words." In her first posting on this subject on her Way of Love blog, Nancy Detweiler offers the following. The Zionist-controlled U.S. media gives the beautiful memorial dedicated by Putin a total silent treatment. The monument is barely known even among local residents of Bayonne, where it is located. The base of the monument is surrounded by a marble wall with the names of the 3,000 victims engraved in alphabetical order. It was a gift from Russia on the 5th anniversary of 9/11. Thus, 2006, and Americans still don't know it exists. This is an almost unbelievable example of how Americans are manipulated and mind-controlled. It is also an example of the best way to keep a secret is to place it in plain view. The criminal cabal had much rather send you into World War III than to share knowledge of the tremendous gift from Russia with the people. On her Future Trendcast blog site, Lotta Ray, known for her research and reports linked to events involving Russia, Ukraine, and other countries, wrote a longer, more detailed piece on the history of the monument, of U.S.-Russia relations, and of Putin. Among other things, Lotta Ray shares that I would venture to say that the U.S. attitude at the time towards the Russian people's sincere gift was one of those last straws that eventually broke the camel's back. Such attitude convinced even the most naive Russians that there was no way of reasoning with the U.S. She noted how Putin was the first leader to call then-President Bush to offer Russia's condolences. At that time, Putin was in the good graces of the U.S., and Lotta Ray offers more information also on how Putin was thought to be a member of the New World Order, but turned on the global controllers and has masterminded what appears to be a brilliant expose of the global cabal and is now allowing them to free fall. A link to her information and research will appear in the show's summary and is worth taking a look at. In 2010, a local CBS station in New York was reporting that the statue was being slated for removal due to alleged development plans for the land. It seems, however, that enough people in the community had become familiar with it and chose to support it, or another force intervened to ensure that the statue remained up. On a second blog posting on the story, Detweiler says that there is no longer any excuse for the people of the U.S. She writes that for the first time, Americans have undeniable proof that the mainstream media and our secret government have not been honest with us. The teardrop presents irrefutable evidence. No longer can Americans hide behind phrases like conspiracy theory rather than seek the truth. The teardrop is concrete evidence, standing 100 feet tall on American soil and with engraved evidence that it was a gift from Russia to the American people in memory of 9/11. No longer can Americans say, "I'll believe it when I see it." Go to Bayonne, New Jersey, and see it. Had this monument related to anything other than 9/11, writes Detweiler, it likely would still be hidden in plain sight. But 9/11 memorial services are just days away now, and this time many Americans know about the teardrop. No longer does the term conspiracy theory serve to dismiss truth seekers and proclaimers. Detweiler also reminds her readers of one of the prophecies of Edgar Cayce, who stated that, "In Russia there comes the hope of the world," not as that sometimes termed as the communistic or Bolshevik, no, but freedom. Freedom. That each man will live for his fellow man. The principle has been born. It will take years for it to be crystallized, but out of Russia comes again the hope of the world. Of course, the sooner our planet continues its journey forward towards the co-creation of something better, so too must we move through the veils of separation and disillusion. Thanks to Nancy Detweiler, Lada Ray, and unknown others who are fulfilling their service to humanity in helping to make information like this known to the people of the world. In disclosure-related news, I just want to clarify quickly again, in case there were any who missed it last week, a mistake that appeared in this newscast. Those who listened to the newscast on Friday night or Saturday heard a story about the spacesuit worn by Neil Armstrong. In the report, there was an image of the boots worn by Armstrong, but the tread did not match the tread of the boots allegedly worn on the surface of the moon. I had speculated that perhaps this was evidence that the moon landing had been faked. CVN listener Mike O'Brien contacted me and provided me with a link to a website showing the outfit worn by astronauts so they can survive the cold of space. In this photo, there are included overboots, which are worn outside the craft. It appears that these are boots that provided the tread that allegedly appeared on the moon. Nancy Detweiler also provided a photograph showing these overboots, and indeed the tread does match. Although there are many who still believe the moon landing to be fake, the evidence I provided was incorrect and does not support the alleged faking of the moon landing. In this sense, I apologize to my listeners for this mistake. It is not unusual for people to see an abundance of movies at this time with themes relating to space or to the existence of extraterrestrials, or ETs as they are more commonly known. What is less common, or at least what has been less common up to recently, are programs and commercials on TV that have a galactic or ET theme. Perhaps even more uncommon are messages coming from organizations such as the United Nations. One commercial in particular is circulating on the internet right now, and it is coming from a United Nations bureau in Chile, in South America. The existence of our galactic families in South America is arguably a non-issue. It is already a given. In fact, many would probably laugh at North Americans who try to claim that our galactic families do not exist. So this commercial would not turn as many heads in South America as it might in North America. Unfortunately, the original video link I had for the story has been removed, although I was able to find a second link ahead of airtime. There are several other links to the video that are accompanied with scary music and images, and I encourage you to avoid those videos. I was able to find the other copy of this video, as I mentioned, by doing the search in YouTube under the following keywords: UNICEF, Chile, diversity, video. The second link will be in the show summary as long as it remains active. It is my belief that the UN was, or perhaps is, attempting to promote the acceptance of diversity, but within that message, the idea was being planted that we will also have to accept the diversity of life beyond Earth. The commercial shows an ET humanoid with visibly different facial features being taunted and bullied. At the end of the ad, however, the ET child uses his powerful gifts to do positive things for others, and in this way, the child becomes more accepted and welcome. The message at the end is, do not miss the opportunity to accept someone different. Do not miss the opportunity to change your life. Are you ready to welcome our galactic families? Are you ready to change your life? In technology-related news now, It was about 2 years ago that CVN reported that an inventor in Japan had created a technology to turn plastic into oil. This week, an article on the Good News Network website by Terry Turner on August 17th reports on an Egyptian teenager who has apparently discovered an inexpensive way to turn plastic trash into fuel. According to Turner, Asa Fayyad discovered a cheap and plentiful catalyst called aluminosilicate that drastically reduces the cost of converting plastic waste into gases like methane and propane, which can be turned into ethanol, what some scientists are calling biofuel, because the organic chemicals from plastic polymers that she extracts are the same chemicals extracted from vegetation to create ethanol biofuel. The process releases other chemicals that can also be recycled and sold. Egypt produces 1 million tons of plastic trash every year, and it's estimated Fayyad's process could convert that much trash into fuel worth about $78 million every year. Turner adds that Fayyad's ideas attracted the attention of the Egyptian Petroleum Research Institute. The institute gave the teen access to a lab and its researchers in order to help refine her trash-to-fuel formula. It was perhaps only a matter of time before more people would begin to discover the treasure in trash. Listeners may recall late in 2013, CVN reporting on 19-year-old Bovan Slat, who created an ocean array to collect plastic from the ocean. In a separate article by Turner on October 1st of the year 2013, Turner reported that Slat's concept, called the Marine Litter Extraction Unit, proposes a radical cleanup solution, for which Slat won the Best Technical Design Award of 2012 at the TU Delft University in the Netherlands, where he was a first-year aerospace engineering student. Turner follows up on that story with an article on June 1st of this year, reporting that Slat's invention is due to be deployed in 2016. Turner writes that after completing a $2 million crowdfunding campaign last September, he is ready to launch the project off the coast of Tsushima Island between the East China Sea and the Sea of Japan. The 6,500-foot boom will be the longest floating structure ever put to sea and will spend at least 2 years collecting plastic trash floating in the Korea Strait. Also, according to Turner, a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences last year estimated that there are 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic in the world's oceans. Slat believes his system can collect almost half of this 77,000 tons of plastic within just 10 years. On the organization's homepage, Slat is quoted as saying that taking care of the world's ocean garbage problem is one of the largest environmental challenges facing humankind today. Not only will this first cleanup array contribute to cleaner waters and coasts, but it simultaneously is an essential step towards our goal of cleaning up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This deployment will enable us to study the system's efficiency and durability over time. What is even more significant is when governments begin to understand the damaging effects of trash and seek to implement solutions in unique ways. Turner reported on August 20th in another article that patients in Indonesia can trade recyclable trash for doctor visits in a clever plan to get affordable medical care to people in rural villages. 3 in every 5 Indonesians have no health insurance, and with no money to pay for doctors, they put off medical care, allowing easily treated illnesses to turn into major problems. Dr. Gamal Albin Said looked for a substitute for money, something people already had that they could trade for health care. He didn't have to look much further than Indonesia's trash-strewn streets. There's garbage everywhere on the ground, he said, according to Fast Company. So we decided to use a garbage as a financial resource. Only about half the trash produced in Indonesia is collected, which creates health problems and allows tons of valuable recyclables to go to waste. Albin Said created garbage clinical insurance to take in trash, sell it to recyclers, and use the money to pay for health care. 4 pounds of plastic or 11 pounds of cardboard will sell for less than $1, but that's enough to buy a basic health insurance policy that pays for 2 visits to a doctor a month. Incredible ideas coming from incredible people, bringing hope and even more inspiration to others that their dream to create something better for our planet can be realized, because now is the time for creating and manifesting a better world for all. Breakthroughs are happening on an almost regular basis these days with regard to newer energy sources. The fact that news about so many new technologies coming out seems to suggest that the forces that have been so powerful in the past suppressing these ideas are no longer as powerful as they once were. However, the media is still very slow to report on new developments, so the new ideas and technologies are still moving through the social media channels of those sharing information. An article on August 9th, appearing on the freeenergy.news website by Craig Brown, has reported on an announcement made by Chief Scientist and Vice President of Airbus Industries, Jean-François Geneste, regarding a theoretical breakthrough on a source of energy known as LENR, which stands for Low Energy Nuclear Reactions. In the past, this was more commonly known as cold fusion. According to the Tech Target website, an explanation of cold fusion is as follows. Cold fusion is a hypothetical process in which hydrogen fusion supposedly occurs at room temperature. The topic is controversial because the notion appears to defy the laws of physics. Some scientists believe that cold fusion represents a real phenomenon and that it will someday form the basis for an abundant, cheap source of energy. Others maintain that cold fusion, like perpetual motion, is impossible. In the hydrogen fusion process, the nuclei of hydrogen atoms are driven together to form helium nuclei. It takes 4 hydrogen nuclei to ultimately produce a single helium nucleus. Energy and certain subatomic particles are emitted as byproducts. After the first hydrogen bombs were successfully tested, scientists and engineers began searching for a way to control hydrogen fusion reactions and harness the energy in a constructive manner. Hydrogen fusion generates no dangerous nuclear waste, is far more efficient than the fission processes currently used in nuclear reactors, and has its basis the most abundant element in the universe, that being hydrogen. It appears that Geneste may now be proving the skeptics wrong. Geneste will be presenting the information on his breakthrough at an upcoming workshop to be held at Airbus facilities in Toulouse, France, in October. According to a statement by Geneste, what it basically consists in is a global theorization of energy creation, which includes all known means up to today, that they be chemical, nuclear fission, or nuclear fusion. Against all expectations, it is proved that there is potential room for cold fusion, or so in a breakthrough approach of building a burner and making a new fuel. The home page for the workshop explains that the goal and format of the workshop is as follows. Hydrogen gas loading is a promising technology to reliably create thermal and nuclear anomalies. The purpose of the workshop is to bring together an international group of experts to present their results and encourage discussion. The emphasis is on theory, models, explanations, but novel experimental results will also be accepted. Although it remains to be seen, it is possible that this alleged breakthrough may have similar properties to an earlier cold fusion technology invented by Andrea Rossi from Italy. According to Rossi's homepage, it took Rossi almost 18 years to develop the energy catalyzer, or ECAT, a device which will be the principal component in a new energy product range. Leaving neither toxic nor radioactive waste, Rossi's energy catalyzer ECAT has the potential to solve the global energy problem by delivering inexpensive and completely green energy. Although it is possible that cabal-controlled sources have been trying to suppress or at least delay the release of Rossi's work, perhaps with the announcement from Geneste and Airbus, it is signaling a time when things are about to move along much more quickly in releasing new energy technologies to help humanity and the planet. Finally, in health news, with so many people wearing glasses and others beginning to experience conditions of blurry vision, it is no surprise that many are looking for ways to improve their vision. Several sources have indicated that blurry vision is one of the symptoms being experienced at this time as our bodies adapt to different energies, allegedly coming from Earth's passing through the photon belt and other sources also. The eye is a muscle and requires exercise. In today's world, however, with so many people spending many hours a day looking at the same computer, which is the same distance from the eyes in the same position in front of the individual, the eyes are just not receiving the exercise and stimulation that they used to get. Wearing prescription eyeglasses, it has been reported, does not help the eyes at all, but in fact only makes the eyes progressively worse, thus ensuring that there will always be a demand for corrective eyewear. According to at least one source, however, this is not necessary. An article on the Healthy and Natural Life website on June 25th has claimed that thousands of people have improved their vision with a series of exercises and pressure point massage. According to the article, everyone knows that when you don't use a particular group of muscles for too long, they will become weaker. In case you are wearing glasses and don't do exercises for your eyes, your vision will gradually weaken. Your eye muscles require exercises as every other muscle in your body. Restoring one's vision requires following several rules. You will need to avoid hard pressure on your eyes, and it is recommended to close your eyes for several minutes on every 2 or 3 hours. It is necessary to implement gymnastics for the eyes, which contain 16 exercises. Get rid of your glasses. Implement everyday massage on the specific points. Apply light pressure on your eyeball with the tips of your index and middle finger. Press the eyeball lightly so you don't feel any pain. Then press these points with your index finger twice. It is necessary to look into a distance while walking outside. Drink carrot juice with several drops of olive oil constantly. Rinse your eyes with warm water. Don't use your PC or laptop at least 2 hours before going to bed. Implement the Indian exercise Trataka in order to establish your vision. In the article, a Trataka involves focusing on a small object, a black dot, or even a candle flame, which can be a form of meditation. Go as long as you can until tears come to your eyes, and then close your eyes and give them a rest. The link in the show summary has a diagram showing the different eye exercises, as well as a diagram showing the pressure points to be massaged. In last week's FYI segment, Alice Coppers began a series of reports dealing with the dangers associated with glyphosates, a compound that is gaining notoriety as being a part of Monsanto's Roundup product. In this week's segment, Coppers continues exploring more some of the links to autism.
Tonight we're going to continue a discussion on glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, and focus more on autism and Alzheimer's and other brain disorders that it causes. I have a lot of research from Dr. Stephanie Seneff, and she's listed in my references, about the disruption of pathways. And basically, there is a destruction that occurs by glyphosate in plants when it kills the weeds. And it is in the initial digestive process. For people, same way. There's a severe destruction of intestinal flora and bacteria that are replaced by a very bad bacteria that grows extensively. Probiotics studies have shown good success in helping regain the good bacteria back in the stomach after this type of destruction. Dr. Stephanie Seneff, she believes that Alzheimer's and autism begin with the destructional flora in the mother's stomach while the child is still in the womb and neurologically developing. She also talks about how the disruption of pathways, and what I want to focus on right now, it blocks several pathways that are vital to life. The shortage of calcium, iron, manganese, sulfur, and zinc are going to be my focus. There are about 5 others that she lists, but these were the top 5 that are blocked by glyphosate. And iron is one of the most important functions in blood and oxygenation. It helps develop enzymes. It's important for growth in kids, and your immune system depends on oxygenation of the blood. Iron deficiency symptoms include brittle hair, nails that are spoon-shaped and have ridges running lengthwise, hair loss, fatigue, light pallor, that means a light complexion, dizziness, and I would like to include car sick and seasickness. According to the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, iron utilization is impaired by rheumatoid arthritis and cancer. So these are both autoimmune disorders, and they will interrupt your ability to absorb iron. Iron is directly related to the immune system because iron deficiency creates chronic infections. Manganese is a mineral that is in minute quantities but needed for protein and fat metabolism. So healthy nerves, healthy immune system, blood sugar regulation, they're all related to manganese. And manganese is essential for iron-deficient anemics because it utilizes the B vitamins and vitamin E to give an overall feeling of well-being. Okay, so it can make enzymes needed to oxidize fats and metabolize poisons in the blood. Calcium has the control of transmission of nerve impulses. And when we look at autism and we look at Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, it is definitely neurological related. The communication system has broken down and the person has no or very little recollection of what they have done for years and years and forgotten things that are regular habit. Autism's not that way. Now, autism, they can focus on a doorknob and be OCD on something and go all night, sleep 2 hours, and then go another 22 hours. Again, there's that broken sleep pattern in the brain disruptions. But calcium deficiency can result in nervousness, cramps, hypertension, aching joints, tooth decay, insomnia, numbness in the limbs, arms and legs.